Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Griffin. I'm a product leader and product coach, and welcome back to the Product Mind Lab. Today, we're talking about AI agents, which, if you're like me, you see everyone talking about this all the time, and there's a lot of hype and I think a lot of marketing language around this. And that's actually why I brought Himanshu here on the Product Mind Lab, who works with AI agents day in and day out and actually implements them for a lot of people. So we're going to dispel a lot of the myths here today. And he has such an amazing background. But I'm actually going to allow him to share a lot more about his background and what he's worked on, and then we're going to dive into the world of agents. Thank you so much for being on the Product Mind Lab.
Thank you very much, Anne, for hosting me, and it's a pleasure being here. Hello, everyone, and I'm Himanshu. I call myself an AI connector. Essentially, like all of you, I'm also trying to solve the puzzle which we can solve using AI, and I help people, businesses, leaders connect AI to solve a particular problem very well defined, and keeping this in mind that we can leverage AI in a very responsible and ethical way. Currently, I'm also a part of a research institute which does a lot of fundamental research, and my role is to help our larger partners adopt that research for solving their business problems. Previously, I have been part of the MIT Innovation and Entrepreneurship Network. I also did a program there, and before that, I I had the great opportunity to be in different part of the world, serving and helping people, large organizations adopt technology to transform whatever they do. So great to be here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. And that's so, I mean, it's so important. It's so impressive because obviously, especially once the bigger the organization, almost the more resistance you get to change, and helping people, right, adopt new technologies is to be able to do that. Not only is powerful, but also takes a lot of great skills from communication to actually understanding and being able to like kind of translate and transform for that company. And with agents, everyone's talking, you work with a lot of companies, and one thing you mentioned was like, hey, I help these companies with very defined use cases apply AI agents. And there's a lot of stuff online that just talks about AI agents for anything and everything. So, but help people understand, right? Because there's a lot of talk about what is an AI agent, but what is not an AI agent, especially some of these places where maybe marketing is getting a little creative about how they're describing it.
Absolutely, very interesting question. So I would say AI agent are not just chatbots or rule-based automation. Remember those days of RPAs and simple predictive models which we have traditionally been using via the traditional machine learning. So unlike the traditional applications and softwares, these are the series of workflows, algorithms which have been designed to operate autonomously. They can do a lot of things on their own. They can decide on behalf of the user if you have accordingly programmed them. And another thing about them is they can adapt to the changing environments. They have inputs based on what inputs you have programmed in the workflow. They will be able to kind of take those decisions as things evolve. And though many companies label any AI powered system as an agent, but I think true agents should essentially exhibit autonomy. They should be persistent with that particular flow which you have defined for them, and they should be able to adapt because they should not just respond to an input. So there's not just conversational bots, but they can proactively take an action towards a goal which the user or the developer has set for them.
Amazing. And so when we talk about they make a decision, what type of decisions? Because some of these systems there's technically a decision, but it's a decision between, it's like very simple. It's almost more if then logic. What type of decisions are these agents making?
So it could be what has been programmed to them. It could be that okay, for example, you have a multi-agent system where you have dedicated certain tasks to agent one that undertake research on XYZ topic. So it goes up, looks up in the concern document, or it could be web search. It brings in those. Second agent could be tasked with making the decision of perhaps truncating that research into a very refined piece of report.
Yeah.
And then there could be a third agent which is doing a review and
Okay.
perhaps puts it into a particular format which you have kind of
Okay. So
programmed the
deciding
agent to
like
do.
what is the right way to
Yeah,
format it and deciding like what is the right part of the research we want to incorporate, those type of decisions.
exactly. And it could be like, for example, it could be, let's say you have programmed an agent to do travel booking. So
Okay.
it goes up, looks up for the various options available for
Yeah.
somebody to fly from New York City to Los Angeles, and then you have said that okay, it should be between X date to Y date, and it should not cost me more than, let's say, $400. And leveraging my reward points on my credit card or my reward points on my so and so program, so it could accordingly take those decisions on your behalf. So it's
Hmm.
something which you have kind of uh, asked it to do. It'll do it as per you. So it's very important for us to define those actions for them.
Yeah.
So they will do it autonomously, but it has to be defined by the user or the developer in the backend.
Okay. Okay. I have another question for you, right? And so one of the things is you have tools like Zapier where they've kind of automated certain processes, you know, and now they're adding things where you can add a little bit of AI in them for people, the people at home, right? What kind of differentiates something that's maybe a standard like Zapier, automation from what an agent is? Because now there's a lot of tools popping up saying they're agent platforms that are really like a copycat of what Zapier was doing, and every now and then they sprinkle a little AI on top.
Yeah, I think like you previously mentioned, because it's hyped, so there will be a lot of marketing gimmicks which would be played by people. But the larger value of agents, as we described earlier, would be that they will be able to provide us a lot of value
Yeah.
because we can actually leave them to do that particular task, which otherwise would have taken X
Mm.
amount of our time,
Okay.
and we could leverage the time for something else.
Okay.
So there will be some changes in the
Yeah.
market. Things will settle down, and you will find that distinction in terms of as we productionalize these multi-agent or single-agent flows into products. Some of the companies will bring in their existing products with some enhancement.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that
Mm-hmm.
one particular feature of their product gets enhanced using an agentic flow. Or, for example, let's
Yeah.
say if you see deep research, which is being launched by almost everyone, initially
Yeah.
started by Google, but then you have it from OpenAI,
Yep.
Perplexity. Yesterday, Google actually made it public for everyone to use on
Amazing.
Gemini. So they're also running a set of agents in the back end, and which is helping you curate what you want to curate in terms of a report, a research, or a paper. So I think there's a lot of flux of marketing gimmicks as well
Yes.
as good research backed products which are coming to the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
And as it has happened previously in last 2 years, the users will evaluate them, see the
Yeah.
value, and then adopt them.
Yeah.
And perhaps similarly, the companies will improvise,
Yeah.
will change their tack in terms of how they want to kind of market them and what brings the value.
Yeah.
That is something which will sustain. Others will kind of perish or they will
Yeah.
pivot.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you said the biggest reason why AI agents fail is humans. Can you talk more about that?
So I would say, like for any technology, for it to be successful, the purpose of the technology is to serve the human to create that particular business value or that particular impact, right? So, like previous technologies or existing ones, AI agents may fail if we do not give due focus to human focused challenges. For example, there could be an expectation mismatch. As a user, I expect agent to do everything so that I can just chill. That may not happen, right? Because I need to do some kind of iterative process, give some kind of feedback to the developer if I'm getting it done on-prem or it's being made for me, or if I'm using something which is already built in, I will have to kind of make sure that through an iterative process, I'm able to enhance the value of the agentic flow which I'm using. And sometimes there will be certain use cases where there's no clear workflow, right? If the
Yeah.
workflow is not clear, let's say, for example, going back to the previous example of booking a flight ticket, if I do not specify that I would like to restrict the
Yes.
flight ticket to less than $400,
Oh my gosh.
I can get a flight booked by the agent, which may costs $2,000, right? A
Oh
business
no.
class flight,
Yeah.
which is flying this evening, right?
Yeah.
And that is not something which I wanted, right? I mean, this is a very
Yeah.
basic problem to be addressed. But if we do not specifically align the workflow which we wanted to achieve, it's like actually giving instructions to anybody else. Like, say, I
Yeah.
join your company as an intern, and you want me to do a particular task in a
Yeah.
particular manner. If
Yeah.
there is an existing process workflow which I can follow, or you give me instructions, I follow those instructions to the T,
Yeah.
and I deliver the value and complete the task. So I think that is another thing. And sometimes it's typical. Some of us are very much reluctant to delegate and
Yeah.
trust. So it's a trust building exercise where
Yeah.
we will slowly and steadily, as users, will start delegating certain tasks to these agents or other techniques and technologies which are now coming up to enhance our productivity, perhaps free up our time and mind so that we can
Yeah.
do more high leverage strategic work. So that is another thing. And lastly, I would say that sometimes we are leveraging very rudimentary or legacy systems
Yes.
which may not be aligned to adopt these new systems. So
Yes.
failure of integration with existing systems, it could be infra, it could be data
Yeah.
pipeline, compute, and or generic infra which will allow these new
Yeah.
tools to run,
Yeah.
could cause this kind of disbalance. And then finally it comes back to the user. So
Yeah.
essentially
Yeah.
anything, uh, if it is to be adopted successfully, I think it's very much dependent on us as users, as
Absolutely.
humans, how we want to leverage that and then change the way we do what we do.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on something, especially in terms of, expectations, right? And some of it is also like managing those expectations. And some of that can be done through the UI. And can you kind of talk a little bit about how this creates opportunity for more human friendly, you know, interaction interfaces for these agents?
Absolutely. I think what has changed in last few years, and you would have noticed it, that the UI UX has been the gateway for
Yeah.
us humans
Yeah.
to interact with technology, and it started with the democratization of usage of AI through ChatGPT and likes of these solutions where everybody could utilize these tools. They were existing previously. We had
Yeah.
foundation models, we had Gen
Yeah.
AI, but it was restricted to certain few members of
Mm.
our teams,
Yeah.
and the entry to barrier to use them was little
Yeah.
high. So
Ah.
that got broken. And now, the better the UI UX is, better it is for everyone to use.
Yes.
So I think this is the age where each and every individual, irrespective of their initial background in terms of if they
Hmm.
are a techie or a non-techie, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If they would like to leverage these tools with better UI UX, can actually be leveraged by them to achieve
Yeah.
what they intend to achieve. So you will find a lot of companies being created as solopreneurs or three
Yeah.
founders and reaching a very high value in the market because they are leveraging these tools
Mm.
and creating that value. And like Langflow, for example, tools which have a very interesting UI UX where people can just
Mm.
drag and drop and create solutions, which becomes easy for them, and
Yeah.
they do not then focus too much of their attention on back end because they are focused on
Yeah.
front end. They are focused on value,
Yes.
and that is what is going to transform how businesses are done and
Yeah.
how individuals can create a lot for which otherwise they would have required a large team. Sometimes
Yes.
they might not be able to afford that large team because they are
Yes.
expensive. Those specialists are not readily available. That is changing. And one thing which has shifted for last, I think,
Mm.
12 months is
Yeah.
the multi-model interface. You do not have to type only. You do not
Yeah.
have to code
Yeah.
only. You can speak, you
Yes.
can upload pictures,
Oh
and
my
it
God, that
can
is
it can actually
love to hear
decipher a
it.
lot of things, right? So
Yeah.
that is the next thing which has actually transformed how multimodal interfaces are helping us. And for sure, and this can only be achieved when we have a lot of responsible and ethical
Yeah.
practices in terms of transparency and explainability, and how we always have a human in the loop. We can't just
Yeah.
leave everything in autopilot and it gets done, because then it will be something which is very shabby, which is
Absolutely.
very unsafe and unaligned. So
Yeah.
you need, so perhaps now
Yeah.
it could be the user at the
Yeah.
center of it, that he or she is determining what exactly they want to do
Yes.
with these particular tools.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Very sophisticated UI UX, they create something which
Hmm.
then gets used by their end users. Let's say if they are business owners or they are entrepreneurs, they create those solutions which can actually transform how we leverage these technologies to bring in anything. It could be from website creation to app creation to perhaps running your own business as a solopreneur, for which earlier you would have required a web developer, you would require an app developer, you would have required five more people to assist. I think that is shifting now, and that is what I think going to change how everyone could enhance
Yeah.
their productivity, their value using these enhanced UI UX on these tools.
Amazing. Amazing. And we talked about, obviously like the interface a bit, but for where things are now with agents, and I think you touched on this when you talked a bit about well-defined use cases. How do you know if a business is or isn't ready for agents?
Yeah, and again, going back to adoption of any new technique or technology, I think for a business to be ready for AI agents, it would require to have very well documented workflow, because that is
Mm,
what would help you decide
yeah,
the whole pipeline. And you will require a lot of structured data. It could be unstructured as well, but you need data, which is a high quality data, because that's what the system will get trained on. And then it may be that a company or a business is already using some kind of automation, but now you will have to decide at what point of
hmm
this workflow you would like to
yeah,
detail an agent to take that autonomous decision, right? It could
yeah,
be that, okay, just bring me the news articles from this particular space and just don't do anything. Afterward,
yeah,
whatever has to be done in terms of compilation of my news bulletin, I will do it myself.
yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah,
compile a bulletin for me and then add something else to it, and then I'll review it. So it's a call which the user has to take. And if you do not have that kind of decision making, then perhaps what the output of the agent flow would be would not meet your expectations. So that's something which is required for us to
yeah.
connect. And then I would say, like any other adoption of new techniques or technology, will require an iterative process, that
Yes.
we actually do something, build upon it, perhaps do a little of review ourselves or with our end users, and see how it is
Hmm.
aligning to their value, their usage, and then build upon it. Perhaps also in large organizations, we will require a lot of
Yeah.
executive buy-in and
Hmm.
alignment
Yeah.
within the team, that why are you bringing something which is totally new, which
Yeah.
is taking
Yeah.
things away from us. So that's more part of
I
change
see.
management,
Yeah,
which I think we
absolutely.
talked about earlier as well. And I think a business or a particular startup may not be ready for agentic flow if they still lack some clarity on their data pipeline.
Mm,
They do
okay.
not have
Yeah.
workflow which is consistently designed, so
Yeah.
they can perhaps work on that first.
Yeah.
And very importantly, like we I think talked about, I think in our last conversation, the adoption of any new technique is almost 70% about change management, people and processes.
Hmm.
So if the
Hmm.
people are not ready, processes are not ready, I think it's a little early. So let's
Yeah.
work on that before we actually deploy any of these tools.
Yeah.
And last thing, again, is about expectations. A company or a business which thinks that we will expect this new technique to solve all our problems, perhaps that is something which may not be possible in the
Hmm.
first
Yeah.
go. So we'll have to have some alignment there as well.
Yeah. No, those are all really great points, and I think really roots in the realities of organizations where, yes, the promise is really big, but there's the reality piece that
Yes.
comes in. And if you want to get the value of it, you actually do need to kind of prepare the way to be able to get the value from it. And I'm really curious, what types of businesses are you seeing adopt agents the fastest? Is there any pattern there?
So I think where you have a lot of high frequency repetitive tasks,
Mm,
which can be offloaded to
mhm.
someone else, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
so those tasks definitely can be offloaded to the
Hmm.
multi-agent system, where
Yeah.
you can task them to do certain things. But I would once again dwell deeper into the point that at the end of it, there should be a human in the loop
Yeah.
who's taking the final decision, and who's finally perhaps checking it and making sure it's happening the way you would like to have make it happen. Because at the end of it, there's a receiver, there's a person, a user who's receiving what you're trying to build. And any business which has a very clear cut decision making rule
Yes.
or a decision making metrics, which becomes easy for them. Okay, out of these 10 tasks, 5 tasks can be handed over to these agents, and 5 will remain with us, and those 5 which are handed over to
Yeah.
agents as well would be supervised or force overseen by one of our team members, right? And it has to make economical value as well,
Yeah.
because finally technology, because of compute API calls, could be expensive, so you have to make sense what makes business
Yeah.
sense to you in terms of
Yeah.
dollar value, and
Yeah.
how can you scale it. Let's say if it helps you connect with the users and that scales your business,
Mhm.
very good. If it does not, perhaps you can launch it as a pilot and test it out. If they like it, you like it, it works for you, go ahead. Otherwise, perhaps still little away from its induction. And I think what remains very, very important for businesses is to see it's not the technology which people will like or users would like. It is the solution or the value which it
Yeah.
would create. So
Yeah.
I'm like, a lot of us will use so many tools and so many applications. We are least bothered, except the marketing gimmick and just doing the first subscription. We are
Yes.
more interested in the value, right? We do not,
Exactly.
it does not matter to us whether which
Yes.
technology are you using. Are you using generation 5 or generation 4?
Exactly.
Till the time solves the problem for us. So that remains a very important factor. And I think businesses can prioritize what creates more impact for them vis-a-vis what is feasible, right? And the
Yes.
feasibility could be technical feasibility, economical
Yes.
feasibility, business feasibility.
Yes.
Sometime all of it may work, sometime one of it may work for you. So that is a call, which is a business call by
Yeah.
the leader, which
Yeah.
they should take.
That's amazing. Yeah, it makes so much sense. And my last question for you today is what are the best resources for people who want to learn more about AI agents, but maybe they're just starting their journey learning about this?
Very interesting, very important question. So I would say that most of the hyperscalers, uh, Google, Amazon, as well as Microsoft, they have their courses. All these courses are free. So I would encourage you to kind of enroll for them, use
Yeah.
them, play around in their playgrounds, and see, get your hand little
Yeah.
dirty. Then you have a very interesting course being run by Hugging Face, which
Oh,
is
okay.
right now also on. That could be another way of learning. Then there are certain advanced courses which are being offered by a lot of universities. The Berkeley has a very interesting course, which
Okay.
is a
Oh,
which is running its second iteration now, an advanced course. So that is there, and then you will find a lot of AI gurus. They are running their own. So deeplearning.ai from Professor Andrew Ng. They
oh,
have a lot of
yes.
courses,
Yeah.
and other orchestrators and other platforms like True AI. They have their courses on these platforms as well. Then you'll find every time somebody who builds something, generally they will post a video or a little brief about what they build, how they build. So I think it's interesting. It's very easy to build,
Yeah.
and interesting to deploy.
Yeah.
What becomes important subsequently is that how you evaluate what it's
Mm,
creating, because you
yes.
want what you build to be very much aligned to your business
Absolutely.
goal. You want it to be sustainable. You want it to create value. You don't want just
Hmm.
an experiment to be run rogue all over
A
the
very
place.
expensive experiment.
Yes, yes. So that is why it is important. But there are very good resources now available, and there are
Amazing.
podcasts like this where
Yeah.
you have people who will share their experiences and help all of us adopt. But I think there cannot be a better age and time to be alive and learn. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what is the background, where did we start from.
Yes.
It's what's more important what we do today and
Exactly.
how we shape
Exactly.
our tomorrow by learning today. So everybody is welcome to learn and deploy these
Yeah.
interesting tools.
I think that's one of the most powerful things, like you said. It's, having the background might give you a starting point for learning, but it's really the dedication to ongoing learning, experiments, those sort of things. So, really, really great wisdom. I want to thank you again
My
so
pleasure.
much for being on the Product Mind Lab. Really appreciate it. Any last thoughts, comments you want to share with everyone before we wrap up here today?
Yeah, I think I would say that we all have a lot of power and a lot of abilities, capabilities to do things.
Yes.
It's just the first step which needs to be taken. So, irrespective of which field we have been working in, what was our initial background in terms of school and university education, I think this is the time to kind of learn and then see where it adds value to what we do. And I think generalization is something which we can adopt, because specialization is for insects and animals. Like we being the most sophisticated and intelligent species
Yeah.
on Earth. I
Yeah.
think it's up to us how we deploy and learn with these tools, because in very future you will find that it is the age of collective augmented intelligence, where humans would leverage these
Yeah.
tools, these systems to work side by side. So
Yeah.
that is what I would say at the end, that this is the time to learn and learn.
Amazing. Thank you. Great, great note to leave on. Thank you again for being on the Product Mind Lab. And I know a lot of people are very excited for this episode, because when I told them you were going to talk about not just AI agents, but also explain what they're not, a lot of people said, yeah, I really want to understand that. So thank you for making this so much more
Pleasure.
accessible. Thank you so much for just your passion for sharing knowledge, and helping others. So thank you again. And everyone, listening, stay curious. Have a great one.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate.
you.